Jack Thomas. Welcome to the channel Kahani's Golden Bytes. Thank you for taking our time to be on the channel, Jack.
Thank you, Joby. I'm very happy to be invited here to speak with you today.
Thanks, Jack. Thank you once again. So, Jack, for the benefit of our viewers, may I please request you to give a little background about yourself, Jack, what you're doing currently?
Currently, I'm a teacher. I'm also a music entrepreneur, particularly in the education field. I run the Performers Collective School of Music, which is what takes up most of my time these days.
Wow. So, Jack, so music school, right?
Yes.
Okay. So now, and this is Performers Collective. And where is this based out of, Jack?
Performers Collective is based out of Gurgaon,
Gurgaon.
DLF Phase 4.
Yeah.
It's a music school. We primarily teach Western classical as well as Western contemporary forms of music. There's a team of 15 of us specialists,
Wow.
teachers, and we teach drum kit, violin, acoustic guitar, classical guitar, electric guitar, drum, piano, keyboards, and Western vocals.
Amazing, amazing. So, Jack, how did you? I'll come to the school in a bit. How did you get into wanting to start this? Have you studied music? Have you studied music, and have you done?
Well, music kind of happened in my teens, when I got to play around with the guitar a little bit. And in my teens, I mean, there were two big interests that I had. One was playing basketball, and
Okay.
the other was, playing the guitar. And those times, I mean, those were days you learnt on your own, bought Magna sound tapes, put them on, rewinded them, try to figure out that latest Led Zepp tune, to find out that Hendrix tune. So that's how it started. But pretty much by high school, I had decided and I knew that I wanted to, be associated with music and do something in music. So after school, I kind of dithered around a little, and then I started taking music lessons at the Delhi School of Music, studying classical guitar with Mr. Shankar De. And my journey in music pretty much starts at that point. And I also, since I had been playing for 5-6 years on my own, I also started teaching music at that point, like home to home lessons, to also kind of fun, to add to the fun, to be able to learn music as well and not be a complete burden on my family. So they were absolutely lovely for supporting me through it. I wouldn't be here without their support.
So you started learning at the Delhi School of Music, which is the the oldest institute in that space. So Jack, you started after that, and how long have you been running this Performers Collective?
My teaching career actually starts a little before that.
Really?
By the time I was 18, I was offered a teaching position at the Delhi School of Music. My teacher, was instrumental in supporting me to become a faculty there. And I continued teaching with various institutions, getting experience, various private music schools, as well as being a consulting faculty with Sri Ram School based out of Gurgaon. So, and in the middle of all, this teaching, I had varied experiences. And, as you're young and you discover more, I always had ideas that, it should be done this way or this should be done that way. And that led to actually the establishment of the school in 2003.
2003. Wow.
2003. That's when the school initially started. At that point, it was called Gurgaon School of Music.
Okay.
And that's how the school came.
Amazing. Amazing. So it's almost 20 years now. So Jack, you mentioned multiple instruments, right?
Yes.
So it's just not the guitar, it's multiple, the violin, the keyboard, acoustic.
Yes. So we are a team of 15 specialist teachers, like I said. So my expertise obviously is in both classical music as well as classical guitar, which is what I teach. So we have specialists who teach each of those separate, instruments or styles. Even like I said, we do Western classical as well as Western contemporary.
So Jack, now this is a school which is outside of regular schools,
Yes, we are we're
independent. You're not based inside a school, a small room in a school. You're independent by itself. Oh, right?
yes, yes. Currently, we have grown to about 15 classrooms spread across 4 floors, and we have our own infrastructure here in Gurgaon. So it's we
Wow.
have a little auditorium as well, a small
Mhm.
mini audi in house. We have band practice room. So it's kind of set up to be a specialist, music school where people come to both train right from the beginning to advanced levels, as well as get experience in playing with others. That's kind of where the name Performers Collective also comes from, because the idea is not just learn to how to play, but be able to play with others as well, which is kind of vital when you think of contemporary music playing. Right? A drummer is not going to play alone for his music career, so he's got to learn how to learn music as well. But having said that, the idea is not that the idea was to make music accessible, but in a very structured and in a structured environment where people can learn reading music and and make music part of their lives. So whether you're doing it as a hobby, in which case you probably will learn till the upper foundation levels at our school, or the beginner amateur levels, and then most children tend to take it all the way to the advanced levels, and the ones who really want to make a career out of it then go beyond the advanced into the professional diplomas. So we train all the way from absolute beginners till professional levels. And due to that, our faculty is also all at the professional level. They're full-time musicians as well as educators.
Amazing. So Jack, what I hear is there's a structure that you're following. It is, at every level, there is a structure behind that. It's not that, I feel like doing this. Can you teach me this song? Something like that. Is it?
Over my teaching career, I realized that when one, like for example, when somebody wants to let's say start with their first instrument or voice, right? There are actually two aspects to this. One is that you're learning music, right?
Right.
And you're learning the instrument. Uh,
Mhm.
Even the voice we call an instrument, it's just that the instrument is inside you, right? So there are two aspects to this. Now, what happens when one just learns a few songs to be able to play is that one really doesn't understand what's going on behind it. One really doesn't understand in depth enough to that it stays with you for life, right? So our idea was that you should learn music in such a way that if you're going to learn to be a hobbyist with us, you shouldn't be stuck with us. We should get you to the point where you can continue to be able to be a hobbyist on your own. And often I ask, how many songs can you play? We say the way we teach, it's not about how many songs. We will teach you to be able to play songs at a certain level. And then whether you want to learn 10, 100, a million on your own is your choice. How much time you can find for it.
Lovely, lovely.
So that's the approach we have. And that's why we keep it structured in that manner.
So Jack, when you have, students coming, now this is an independent school that you have, an academy that you have. So they come from different schools, etc. Right? So, I mean, which maybe the student, if you were in a particular school, you wouldn't have that exposure to. So the interests are beyond the instrument and working together, and also getting together, students from different background, different schools, etc. Is that right?
Yes,
That's
that's
possible.
yes, yes. In
Mhm.
fact, I mean, they come from school. I mean, all over the city, right? So it's not. And now, since the online education has taken off in a big way, they're coming from across the world as well.
Wow,
Right?
wow,
The
wow.
on-campus lessons, they're from all schools around there.
Mhm.
Typically, it's also my experience has been teaching in the public school system is that while it while you can teach music, right, there is a degree to which large batches, the availability of well trained teachers, experienced teachers, and even when they're there, how much time they're able to devote to each student. You have large classrooms, instruments that need to be there. The you need soundproofed rooms so that you can hear music clearly. So those are all challenges. So typically, those who show a strong interest for music end up coming to a specialist school like
Mhm.
ours. You know,
Wonderful. So Jack, you talk about a structure. Is there some kind of international exposure? Because, you mentioned a lot of Western, Western classical, etc. What's the kind of exposure that students do get to,
From a recognition point of view, I mean, and this is something that I had actually written a book for. It was supposed to be a series of books. It was published by Scholastic about nearly a decade and a half ago. The idea was to try and put a structured, just like when we learn English or maths at school, we have a curriculum and you have a certain amount of material that's given in a book that you need to cover, go step by step up learning. So that was at that point I had done a pretty good research, going and meeting people at NCRT to figure out. And the problem in India is that in our education curriculum right now, Western music is not recognized per se at the policy level. So it is only Indian music, right? So to actually standardize and be able to talk across, the country, let's say the student has learned this much, is at this level, right? We had to peg it to a system that was already there, which was not there in our country. So we turned to UK. In the UK, those who learn private music, right, are all come under a body called Ofqual. It's the Office of Qualifications. They accredit exam boards to make syllabus based on their outlines. And that is Trinity. That's what you hear of as Trinity, ABRSM,
right.
Rock School or RSL Awards, right? Because what happens is they're all following the same guidelines and making their own individual syllabuses. Right. That then is further used by institutes like ours to set a standard, right? That this is what, at least this much is covered when you're saying that I'm at this level. And that remains standard across not just our country, but pretty much across the world when we are speaking about. So about half the children opt for these exams. They choose to take them, appear for them. They're practical and written as well. These days, they're happening as a recorded submission, which are uploaded to the websites there. At the grade 6, 7, and 8 levels, they carry UCAS points. UCAS is the university admission points that is, valid for UK admissions. So those who are planning to study abroad certainly take these exams because they automatically add, credit points to their admission process. Many students don't do it for that purpose, but to, have a goal that this much I will need to. The examiners come from abroad, out of the country. So what that also means is that both for the school, the teacher, as well as the student, there's an independent evaluation and feedback that, things are happening as per plan and as per an international standard.
That's fantastic here, Jack. So, a couple of things that, caught my attention is, not all students have to sit for the exam. It's their choice, right?
It's up to the discretion of the learner. However, at the back end, we all teachers are keeping those levels in mind as we're teaching.
Right.
And also one of the things that why we, keep only professional musicians as educators is, see, we might have different types of learners. I might have a Joby coming to me tomorrow saying, hey, I want to learn some blues guitar.
Once I need to do that.
I might be saying, I need to, learn some blues guitar and I want to do the Nashville, Tennessee style. So I would probably talk to one of the faculty who does play the blues guitar.
Wow.
Right? And you would join with him. And at the back end, keeping track that you are not just plateauing at one level, that you are growing by the fundamental assessment at the music level, so that you're also getting a feedback that, I'm playing blues, but am I progressing in playing the blues, or have I just learned a bit and I'm kind of plateauing around?
That's amazing.
So it is not, it's a goal-oriented thing, and we take individual lessons. All our practical lessons are individual, so that we can determine what the aim of the person is to learn, and get them there going first. But of course, certain prerequisites are there, which means that just like if you want to be a writer, you might as well learn how to read a little. So we try to make sure that you don't miss out any of the essential things that you would require for music to be with you for life.
Wow. And Jack, you mentioned grade 6, 7, 8, etc. And, international, I mean, when people apply for further studies, etc. So you have all that capability, is what I gather, right? I mean, to, you have all that.
Yes.
Okay. And I also, gathered that, the overseas, the evaluators come from overseas, and they're the ones who actually conduct these exams, and it's,
That's correct. That's
right?
correct. It's an independent body.
Independent body.
Yeah. So the
So,
exam could come from, if it's contemporary music, it could come from RSL Awards or Trinity. If it's classical, it could come from Trinity or ABRSM.
so Jack, when you mentioned that these classes are individual, you also mentioned that they could interact with each other. How is that possible if you're doing, I mean, do you have anything?
What we do is beyond the foundation level, you get the choice of, currently the structure is that when you join, you need to be attending one theory lesson plus one practical lesson.
Okay.
So beyond grade 3, you get the choice of adding on band and ensemble practices, which means that once you've learned the basic skills that allow you to be able to, be steady and be ready to play with others, you have the option of coming in and playing once a week with the other teachers. But again, it's meant to be educational, which means you have somebody in the classroom, I mean, in the band practice room, directing everybody so that, positive results are achieved.
Wow, amazing. So Jack, you mentioned me, in passing, and you also mentioned, we're talking also about school kids, school-going children, and so it just catches my attention is that, can you train, based on age, or can someone who's gray enough as me can also, one day probably walk in and
and it's amazing, because I've been asked this question so many times.
Oh, really?
Right? And about 60% of our students are, 8 to 18 years of age. The remaining are all between 20 and 67.
And 67.
And 67. And quite recently, a gentleman had joined, he was an aircraft engineer from Uzbekistan. He came, pretty much starting classical guitar. And he was hell-bent that I, couldn't do this when I was young. And, I think I'm only in India for 3-4 years, Jack, and I really want to study this. He gave his grade 8 the 4th year.
My God.
And he's as old as me. He's got 2 kids. In fact, he had those 2 kids in that period. So, I mean, my experience is that, it's are you committed enough to want? Age is not a factor.
Age is not a factor from your perspective.
It's not a factor from my perspective. I mean, Clapton started playing when he was 21, if I'm not wrong.
Wow.
I mean, so, and often it is so, because when I started learning, I remember going to a concert by this, young classical guitarist called Jason View. He was 18 years old that time and giving a recital at the IIC auditorium. And I remember sitting there thinking, do I have any hope? But I realized that, that is, there's always going to be, 4-year-olds playing, 5-year-olds playing. It's not that, that doesn't matter.
The pull has to come from within, from the individual.
And I have seen that in so many adults. Those who are committed just achieve, You play the classical guitar, Joby, so
Yeah. So Jack, now with everything going online, y'all conduct online classes too. You mentioned across the world they're coming to you from, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So Jack, I won't take more of your time. I know I've taken a lot of your time, and you have classes to get back to, you and your faculty. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jack, for sharing your views and your lovely journey.
And thank you, Joby, for having me. It's a pleasure.